Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 251st episode of the Simple Sophisticate. Today we're talking about Jomo, or the joy of missing out, and enjoying your unique chosen journey of life. But before I get to that, this week's petit plaisir is the return of a series that I have been excited for it to come back. It's been more than a few months, and it has not disappointed. It's even stronger than the first few seasons, in my opinion, and I'm excited to share it with you, and we'll do so at the end of today's episode. But back to our topic. We're going to talk about this acronym JOMO, also known as the joy of missing out, because as I was reading an article earlier this year as 2019 kicked off, I started to realize that so much of what this is about has to do a lot with what we talk about here on the podcast. This idea of living consciously, of not following, of doing what aligns with who we are, what we want to create, what we foster, what we value, and letting everyone else do their thing and celebrating that too. Saying that's fine, that's great, no judgment. It's not good or bad, it's just different, and it's not what I want to join in on. And it really actually does align with what we talk about here on the podcast quite often. And it was inspired, as I mentioned, by this article. And I want to pull a quote from this article. I linked to the entire article titled Conquer FOMO Forever, Embracing the Joy of Missing Out. And it was written by Eric Brown of High Existence blog. But here's the quote I want to begin today's episode with. Most people are in a constant state of falling for whatever the most interesting thing is, falling for whatever the most popular person is doing. This introduces the endless cycle of constantly shopping for experiences, an endless search for novelty, hedonism, and just a dash of escapism, because they do not conduct the orchestra of their own lives. They search out the best possible maestro to do it for them. The simple creation of an acronym such as FOMO, the fear of missing out, creates this exclusivity. Consequently, creating yet another acronym, JOMO, is to combat it seems a bit hypocritical, as it too requires one to know the meaning without being told. But it was the appreciation for the pushback on the former social media acronym that I applaud. As while it may have been designed to speak about the current moment that one is posting about, JOMO is a celebration of living one's life with courage, thoughtfulness, and clarity. And so the quote is speaking to social influence of a mass population. If we don't know what to do, at least we know if we follow along, we will not be left out or left behind. And as I mentioned actually in my first book, the only maestro that will create a fulfilling life for each of us is the one we see in the mirror each and every day. But taking on the job of being the maestro for our own lives is frightening sometimes, intimidating, and brimming with uncertainty if our journey doesn't emulate the crowd's. When we make the decision from a place of fear, and thus the acronym has that word fear in it, FOMO, we are not in the driver's seat. And in order to remain in the car, so to speak, we don't have our hands on the wheel, and we must go along with the journey someone else is navigating. We don't have the opportunity to respond to our curiosities and take an unexpected detour. Sometimes we will see things out the window or in life that capture our attention and just delight us, but we can't follow those if someone else is driving. Or even stopping at the rest stop when our body needs a break, that's not technically in our control either. And I like this analogy of being in a car and not being in the driver's seat because it really highlights the lack of freedom we have when we are leading our lives through fear. When we give fear the driver's seat, we may live, but we have given up the opportunity to live well. Because only we know what is inside of us, either consciously or unconsciously, that wishes to be realized and shared with the world. And if the form that it takes is at odds with society's approval, and I put approval in air quotes, then there will be great pressure to conform. But by living a life ascribing to FOMO dictates, we lose the opportunity to experience true joy. So what I'd like to talk about next are the benefits of choosing the joy of missing out, or Jomo. When we understand how to cultivate joy in our lives, we come to realize, as Eckhart Tolle teaches, that joy is found within us, whereas pleasure is found outside of ourselves. Therefore, when we choose to live a life of joy, we can experience the set emotion which is equivalent to contentment, because it too is something we find within ourselves. And we can experience this joy or contentment every single day, whether we are doing what the masses are doing or not. Now, a few years ago, I wrote a post about the difference between pleasure and joy, and it was inspired by Eckhart Tolle's quote about what we just talked about, and I will include the link to that post in today's show notes if you want to dive deeper into that differentiation. But back to the topic of benefits of seeking Jomo. We can be happy for others when they do what they enjoy doing, and all the while not feel envy or jealousy because we have discovered how to cultivate our own joy in our own lives. The key, as with everything when it comes to living a fulfilling life, is to begin with getting to know yourself. And I do provide specific tips and ideas for doing this in my first book, as well as ways to capitalize it in my second book. I provide links to both of these in the show notes, but you can also find the books on Amazon. Such knowledge remedies what the quote we just mentioned at the top of this episode shares in the reason so many people gravitate and fall into following due to this fear of missing out. We don't know exactly what to do, so we do what others are doing and is accepted at the time. So much of historical trends, societal expectations, and social norms are fertilized with the constant sprinkling of fear of missing out. So this FOMO is constantly being distributed. However, if you choose to live a life inspired by Jomo, or the joy of missing out, your journey will be like no one else's, even if it has similarities at times to others living now or in the past. Recently, I was reading a post that Grand Story wrote, and since it has been removed, and I'm not sure why, but I provide a link to it on Blog Loving. You can still read it on Blog Loving. And in it, she speaks about the limiting cliches that American society attempts to place on women, and men as well, but especially women, based on their age, relationship status, or whether or not he or she is a parent. She offers inspiration for celebrating as demonstrated by where she finds herself along her journey, which is single, something that she has stated is the first time she has been since the age of 13, and being child-free at the age of 43. Advocating for society to embrace the variety of ways women and men can live and live well while being themselves sincerely, relinquishing the games, the disingenuousness, and instead liberating ourselves in doing all this. I bring that article in and I bring her conversation in because when we let go of these societal cliches, because the cliches really are an embodiment of FOMO, of this fear of missing out. The cliche is the embodiment because we are doing what society has nudged or pushed or guilted us into doing if it's out of fear that we're doing it. If we're doing it because we love it, that's totally different. That's awesome. Go do it. But if we're doing it because we don't want to be left out, because we don't want to be teased, because we don't have the support system that's strong enough to stand behind us if we do something different, then we are following into a cliche that's not going to help us live our best life. And so say we let go of the societal cliches because they don't work for us, and we refuse to let the culture berate us emotionally for not cowering and acquiescing. When we do that, when we have the courage to do that and the strength to do that, we cast off the doubt society would have us put on ourselves, and the life journey we have discovered will be more aligned with our unique strengths and cultivated skills. Such assumed cliches with regards especially to women about the desperation that one must be feeling if they haven't chosen to be married or are no longer married at a certain age or have chosen to live child-free or are without children at a certain age. This is the tool. This cliche is the tool society attempts to use to limit people, to confine them, and attempt to guilt them into being what it wants them to be and supposedly only can understand. In other words, society wants you to be less if for some reason you have elected not to follow what society applauds collectively. Modern men, as well as modern women, perhaps, are going through a struggle of consciously letting go of society restraints, and upon doing so, are discovering that they are setting themselves free to be who they fully are and can truly be. And this ultimately is strengthening and will continue to strengthen society as a whole if all people recognize this vice grip that unconsciously had a hold on them and wanted them to stay within the confines of societal expectations. It appears to me that there is some kind of movement that is strengthening as more modern men and women are exemplifying lives of being content within themselves and bringing calm and acceptance to those around them, without tossing aside their boundaries when society pushes back. When we refuse to follow because it doesn't align with our sense of well-being, we begin to lead ourselves along a more authentic path that aligns instead with the person we enjoy being, and we begin to build a life we are enthusiastic about living each day. And it is in such a moment that we reach the state of Jomo, or the joy of missing out. All right. Now, when I come back, after introducing you to today's sponsors for today's episode, I'm going to share with you some specific examples of living a life inspired by the joy of missing out. Eucalypso makes ultra-soft sheets from 100% organic eucalyptus fibers that are sustainably milled. They're the perfect balance of soft, breathable, and gentleness on the skin for the perfect night of sleep. Eucalypso sheets feel like a cross between cotton and silk. They're super soft and ultra light. I can attest to that. Having been given an opportunity to have a few of their sheets, they do feel like silk, and they are so cool to the touch, and they are perfect for any time of year because they are made with a natural fiber. Now, I am someone who has sensitive skin, and this has been so gentle on my skin. Eucalypso sheets are hypoallergenic, meaning they pamper your skin while you sleep and are perfectly gentle for sensitive and acne-prone skin. All of this translates to fewer breakouts, less odor, and less laundry. If you are a hot sleeper, these sheets are breathable, super light and naturally temperature regulating. They're 3 times more breathable than cotton. They are perfect for hot sleepers who wake up at night from hot flashes. Their eucalyptus fibers are woven to reduce heat and allow more ventilation. And they are sustainably milled in Austria in small batches, with 99.9% of materials being recycled and reused in their production process. They help protect the environment as well. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, when you go to eucalypsohome.com, that's eucalypsohome.com, and use the promo code SIMPLE, you can take 15% off with free shipping on your entire order. Again, visit eucalypsohome.com and use promo code SIMPLE to save 15% off with free shipping on your entire purchase. All modern. While modern life may not always be simple, cultivating a modern home can be. All Modern is an online-only destination for everything modern and priced for real life. Now, as I shared in January, I've been redoing my office. As such, I wanted a unique timepiece. And as someone who likes her antiques and her vintage and her consignment items, I wanted a pop of something unexpected. And so I shopped at All Modern and found a very unique but simple and sophisticated, surprise, surprise, clock for my office. It's made out of natural materials, is very simple to the eye, and adds texture to a wall in its unique way. My purchase exemplifies the curated modern options that you will find when you shop at All Modern. The shopping is easy, the prices are affordable with great quality, and the shipping is very fast and free. Go to allmodern.com/simple and use promo code SIMPLE for 10% off your first purchase. Again, that's allmodern.com/simple and use the promo code SIMPLE. All Modern, the style you love, the prices you want, when you want it. It's that simple. As we talked about prior to the break, when we do let go of this fear and instead step forward in courage, we find ourselves living in the state of Jomo. Now, funny enough, it is sort of by accident that we do actually lead when we do this, but it's not a leadership by force, but instead with organic inspiration, by modeling. And people see our contentment and our joy, and they feel comfortable around us, and they say, why? What's going on? And it's not that they're going to do things exactly the same way. They're not. If they're truly following what speaks to them, they're not. But what they're going to be seeing you model is this letting go of feeling you have to be doing something that everyone else is doing. Now, the world will always change, evolve, and continually try to suggest what is better or preferred or right. And the fear of missing out, what we're missing out on, is going to change constantly too. But it is with an open mind and curious attitude, dedicated to continuing to learn, that we can recognize what is an aha moment where we say, oh, I want to try that, sincerely want to try that. It's not fear that I'm doing this, it's because I'm curious. And then also discern when those instances are, thanks, but that's not for me. We become more clear about those distinctions quite quickly. Now, when we understand ourselves, but also how the world moves, gets along, and how it has done so in the past, so understanding history, including the knowledge of social and psychological and economic motivators, we can observe, contemplate, and feel confident in how we will move with or speak out, either with our actions or our voice, against or suggest or model a new or adjusted idea that has not yet been introduced. Such is the case with Jomo. A simple concept, but it's a 180-degree shift in perspective of what has been put forth as the motivation for leading one's life. Now, what I'd like to do next is share a few specific examples of living a life inspired by Jomo. And all of these examples are going to be preceded by the statement, a modern woman or man embracing Jomo understands, and then I'll share all these examples. So let's just get into the first one. A modern woman or man embracing Jomo understands that there will be pressure from society to conform, but when we recognize it for what it is, ignorance, fear of the unknown, a want of power or control over another, we can say no confidently, liberating ourselves and others. The next example. A modern man or woman embracing Jomo understands romantic love is not the only rich, nurturing, kind, respectful, enriching love that is available to welcome into our daily lives. A modern woman or man embracing Jomo understands respecting others, no matter how little or significantly they play a role in our lives, is an exercise in respecting ourselves as well. This understanding requires us to communicate clearly and without falsehood or insincerity. And it also recognizes we may have to correct ourselves as bad habits and defaults take time to change, especially if society has rewarded us for behaving disrespectfully, either in subtle or not so subtle ways. A modern woman or man embracing Jomo understands loaded language is a common way for societies to nudge or guilt individuals into ascribing to a particular way of living. For example, childless, unmarried. Both include a negative connotation in either the suffix or prefix to suggest something is lacking. It is when we live more consciously, becoming aware of these subtle usages of words, for example, or behaviors, that we welcome more knowledge into our lives about the constructs of society and why they were put into place. And when we recognize and realize these things, we can recognize the defaults others may fall into unknowingly, and so therefore not necessarily blame them, We don't have to correct them all the time, depending upon our relationship with them, but it makes it easier to let these statements or behaviors slip off our back, and we don't have to engage and take it so personally. But at the same time, we can model by how we speak and how we behave the difference and what it really can do to the quality of our lives. Because how we speak and how we behave, understandably, can make a huge difference. A modern man or woman embracing Jomo understands meeting, engaging, and conversing with people, men or women, during our everyday lives can be a bright, wonderful moment. And it really doesn't have to be any more than that. Simply being friendly and sincerely engaged in the exchange is a reflection of who we are as a person and not a reflection of a wanting something more than the current moment, which is offering friendly human connection and kindness. I share this one because I've recognized a difference in my travels abroad in France and England and also here in the States. And one of the differences, especially being a single woman in the past years in my 30s and now in my 40s, is I've noticed that some people make an assumption that because you're being friendly with them, they think that you are showing interest in them and that you want to date them or that you want something from them and that you don't have. And it's in those moments when I walk away and there's an assumption of either or, not anything in between, meaning they either think that I'm showing interest and they like it, or they think I'm showing interest and they're uncomfortable. And while it is me showing interest, it's showing interest in that moment, which is lovely and such a bright spot in the day. I do that a lot when I travel. I'll just talk to people. If, an interesting event happens and we happen to share it, and so we'll just talk and then we go our separate ways, and that's all it is, and that's all it needs to be. But I find that in America is that there is often an assumption that more is wanted if you're being nice to someone. And I would like, at least in my behavior, to model that that doesn't have to be the case. It's just people being friendly in their day-to-day engagements. And that is a default I think we fall into in society, just like a lot of different things, good or bad, and just to be more aware of those. So I share that example from my own experience only. I can only speak to my own experience in that one. And the last one, a modern woman or man embracing Jomo, understands the potential the future holds upon recognizing and refusing to be limited by the confines of societal expectations, and savors the present moment in which they find themselves, as they, by simply living a life of joy, can model and inspire others to feel comfortable to do the same. As we move forward on this journey of celebrating Jomo and really just savoring this life we've created and are creating as we're moving forward, it's important, especially for women, and I speak to women in the United States being that myself, that modern women need not be defined by their romantic relationship status or parental status. Neither should a modern man, but I can only speak to my own experience. It seems to me, and I don't like making assumptions, but it seems to me that fewer stigmas are attached to men with regards to their marital or parental status compared to women. But I could be wrong, and I would love to hear from men who are tuning in to share their experience, because I think it's the understanding that we all need more of. We need to try to understand everyone else's perspectives and experiences. Welcoming love into our life plays a significant role in this idea of the joy of missing out. Love that is good and real is available in so many forms, and for each of us will follow its own timeline as to what we're going to learn on this journey of life about love and what it really is and what it can look like and how it's expressed and how it's experienced. And it begins, I think, with a love for the life that we find ourselves in at this very moment. Not wishing for something more or fearing we are missing out if certain events or outside opportunities have not yet presented themselves on our time schedule. Love, and thus a discovery of joy, is available via a multitude of avenues and communities. Explore, embrace, and nurture where the love is in the journey you are on at this very moment, because it's there. And it is uniquely yours to engage with, celebrate, and appreciate, and then pay forward and give give to others in your own unique way. And that is certainly, most definitely worth celebrating. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I had a lot of different ideas of how I wanted to present this concept of the joy of missing out. I wanted to obviously bring in what society's terms are, or lingo, or the semantics, or the word choice that the society uses. It really spoke to me with regards to what the Simply Luxurious Life approach is. And I saw so many crossovers, and I wanted to take it beyond just what's going on in this very moment and talk about it with regards to our entire life journey. So I hope something spoke to you today. And if you would like to check out a few similar posts or episodes, I've provided a few links for those on today's show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 251. All right, I'll be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir, but first, a word from today's sponsors. Hellofresh is a meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy. Hellofresh makes conquering a kitchen a reality with deliciously simple recipes. Get seasonal, simple recipes and pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door every week. With fresh pre-measured ingredients and easy-to-follow 6-step pictured recipe cards that are delivered to your door each week in a special insulated box. You will spend less time meal planning and grocery shopping so you can get that time back to do more of what you love. With 3 plans to choose from, classic, veggie, and family, and an option to switch between for when your tastes change, HelloFresh helps you get out of that recipe rut and start cooking outside of your comfort zone by discovering new and delicious recipes. Having had the opportunity to cook with HelloFresh, I can attest you will have a delicious seasonal meal on your table in fewer than 30 minutes. And the visual recipe cards are so helpful, being a visual learner myself. Now, as a Simple Sophisticate listener, you have the opportunity to receive $80 off your first month of HelloFresh. Simply go to hellofresh.com/sophisticate80 and enter sophisticate80 to receive that $80 discount off your first month of HelloFresh. Again, visit hellofresh.com/sophisticate80 and enter sophisticate80. Do you love discovering new products? Are you a beauty and fashion maven constantly on the hunt for the next best thing? Ever read about or spot something online that you've always wanted to try but never have? Then you might want to try FabFitFun. FabFitFun allows women everywhere to discover new products as well as including rave reviews, must-have brands that you know and love. It's like Christmas 4 times a year. FabFitFun is a seasonal subscription box delivered 4 times a year with full-size beauty, fashion, home, fitness, and wellness products for just $49.99 a box, with a retail value for the 2019 spring box coming in at $347. That's over $200 of savings since you are receiving full-size products of every single item. Fantastic value. Many products' individual value is more than the entire cost of the box alone. And you can customize your box by choosing some products and add-ons with each box, or be surprised with each delivery. FabFitFun is great for discovering new brands and products. Sign up for FabFitFun today. These boxes always sell out, so use my code of SIMPLE to get $10 off your first box. Go to fabfitfun.com to sign up and start getting the box for a life well lived. Use promo code SIMPLE to get $10 off your first box. That's over $200 for only $39.99. Go to fabfitfun.com and use your code SIMPLE to get $10 off your first FabFitFun box. This week's Petit Plaisir is the 3rd season of Queer Eye on Netflix. It has returned. It just released 8 brand new episodes this past weekend, and it is, I think, even stronger than the first 2, and that's hard to do. Those were wonderful seasons with a lot of inspiration. In this season, they go outside of Georgia, where they primarily were in the first 2 seasons. And while the last season they did make over primarily gay men, there were not all men were gay, but most of them were. This season, they are engaging with people from all different age groups, sexual orientations, relationship experiences, and just having a lot of heartfelt conversations. More so it feels like than they did in the first two. And I felt that they were very strong about creating that tone in the first two of depth and acceptance and understanding, more importantly. I've only watched a few episodes, but I can already say the first episode, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, I have to say. And I found myself appreciating it all the more because of the conversations they had and because of who these 5 awesome experts are in their particular forays. They are uniquely themselves. And that's part of why I chose this petite plaisir to go with today's episode, because this is an exemplification of a celebration of people who are wanting that support and a courage to be or do or embody who they really are, but they didn't know how or what it would look like or how to do it. And they now have a little bit of support and conversation, a safe space to have these conversations about different topics. So here is the trailer for season 3 of Queer Eye, More Than a Makeover.
I had pretty much given up on kind, genuine people.
I lost my little brother when he was 21 in a car wreck, and I stopped caring about myself.
I was drinking a lot. It's tough. I'm running out of options.
They expected me to be someone else. More black, less white, more gay, less gay. I feel like I don't belong.
Absolutely not. You are not ready. You are not ready.
Jess came out when she was 16 years old.
This is our first lesbian.
We're also doing our first duo.
Ew. Oh my God, I love a duo.
Let's do this. Hey, we're here, guys.
Ask for help.
You're not invincible.
Sometimes you just need a little support. That's it.
You go out there and you find your chosen family.
You are the strong, black, lesbian woman.
Thank you.
Now that I found you, don't say it hurts, 'cause there's nothing like this feeling, baby.
It took me my whole life to realize it's beautiful and sexy to care for yourself. I went from being this lost teenager to being a fierce queen.
Oh my goodness. Beauty is confidence.
It's knowing that you're worth it.
Did any of you guys make your first friends at camp?
I made you.
And I'm your guys' friend. Cute.
It's just like a miracle.
First of all, let me just say, I can't help but want to get up and dance every time I watch the intro and the outro and even the transitions throughout each of the episodes. It just have the best soundtrack. But as you can see there from the clips of season 3, it is full of inspiration, contemplation on different topics of ways of looking at our own individual lives and reminding ourselves of our true worth, which is exponential, and finding the courage and the support to bring it forth to the world. So I'll provide a link to the 3rd season of Queer Eye, which is on Netflix now. It just kicked off on March 15th, and you'll find 8 brand new episodes. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Before I wrap up today, I just want to make a bit of a business note and a reminder to listeners that today is the last new episode until the first annual British Week, which is going to be Monday, May 20th. As far as the next new episode, we're going to kick off British Week on Sunday, May 19th, for that entire week. But don't worry, next Monday, I'm going to share one of the top episodes from the archives from the previous seasons that has to do with France and style. So be sure to tune in for that. I'm contemplating doing that same kind of idea of bringing back favorite episodes from previous seasons. We are now in the 5th season, so we have a lot of episodes to pull from for all the Mondays in April. And I'll kind of wait and hear from you guys to see if that's something you'd be interested in. Just to let you guys know why I take April off for podcast new episodes, I realized as far as making sure I have quality podcast episodes, April for me as a teacher is probably the most intense time because I'm an AP teacher. Our tests take place the first couple weeks in May, and April is the final step, and a lot of different things are happening. So I wanted to make sure I was being the best teacher as well as the best podcaster. There are still going to be new Monday motivational posts on the blog. You probably already guessed this, but it takes a lot more time to produce a podcast episode than to write a post. So that's something that I can absolutely do and still make sure I do everything well. But that makes me all the more excited for the first annual British Week, which kicks off Sunday, May 19th with a brand new podcast episode on Monday, May 20th. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And for your reviews on iTunes, for your comments on Instagram about the podcast and the blog, and what you enjoy most, and how your life is going, and how it's evolving as you become and step into your truest self and elevate your journey to what it potentially could be. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I sincerely appreciate it, and I know others do too, as we see different ways of living very, very well. Have a great week. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up my new book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, Making Your Everydays Extraordinary and Discovering Your Best Self. You can also pick up my first book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, which is available now in paperback, ebook, and audio versions on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes, or wherever books are sold. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, my new cooking show, and receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a morning cup of coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée!